interaction between pollen and pistil. In a flower, see there is an interaction between the pollen and pistil. In a flower, see if pollen grains from a different species falls on this pistil, they don't germinate. Even if they germinate, the pollen tube does not reach the ovary. Even if they reach the ovary, they cannot reach the ovule. The length of the pollen tube also gets limited. Okay, so there are a lot of process to recognize compatible pollen grains. That is, compatible pollen grains means pollen grains from the same species. So pollen pistil interaction, it is a process in which the pistil recognizes, pistil in the sense gynoecium, it recognizes the compatible or incompatible pollens through the chemical components produced on them. On the stigma, they have certain chemical components which recognizes if the pollen grain is from the same species or from other species. So they can identify pollen pistil interaction is a process in which the pistil recognizes the compatible or incompatible pollen grains through the chemical components produced by them. If the pollen grain is compatible, that is the same species pollen grain, if it is there, the right type of pollen grain, the pistil accepts it and it promotes the post pollination events. The post pollination events are pollen grain germinates to produce the pollen tube. So the pollen tube grows in the style, the pollen tube enters the ovary, the pollen tube enters the ovule, and then they deposit the pollen tube contents in the synergids. So these are the post pollination uh, events. So this will happen if the pollen grain is compatible or they are the right type of pollen grain, then this happens. So pollen grain germinates on the stigma to produce a pollen tube. So where does the pollen tube form? From the aperture, germ aperture in the exine, the pollen tube is going to form. So the contents of pollen tube move into pollen grain, they move into the pollen tube. What are the contents of the pollen grain? If it is a two-celled pollen grain, they have vegetative cytoplasm, vegetative nucleus, and generative cell. So that pollen grain contents moves into the pollen tube. So the if it is two-celled pollen grain, they'll be having vegetative nucleus, vegetative cytoplasm, and generative cell. If it is a three-celled pollen grain, they'll be having vegetative nucleus, vegetative cytoplasm, and two gametes or sperm cells. So they will be moving into the pollen grains. So the contents of pollen grain move into the pollen tube. So pollen tube grows through the tissues of stigma and style and reaches the ovary. So the pollen tube grows. See the gametes in the pollen tube, they are non-motile. The generative cell, which is there in two-cell pollen grain, within the pollen tube, they undergo division to form two sperm cells. In three-cell pollen grain, it is already ready-made. In case of two-cell pollen grain, in nearly 60% of plants, they are two-cell pollen grain. The generative cell, they divide to form two sperm cells or gametes, male gametes in the pollen tube. So the pollen tube grows through the tissues of stigma, style, and reaches the ovary. So if the that happens if the pollen is compatible, the right type of pollen grain. What do we mean by compatible pollen grain? It is the pollen grain of the same species. Okay. If the pollen is incompatible, that is a wrong type of pollen grain. It is a different species pollen grain. Like pollen grain of tomato might fall on the stigma of hibiscus. So then it is an incompatible pollen grain. If pollen grain of hibiscus falls on the stigma of hibiscus, so we call that as the compatible pollen grain. That is the right type. So incompatible is a wrong type of pollen grain. If the pollen is incompatible or wrong type, the pistil rejects pollen by preventing pollen germination or the pollen tube growth. So how does this pistil reject the pollen grain? They prevent the pollen grain germination or they prevent the growth of pollen tube. Okay. In plants which shed pollen grains at two-cell condition, where they have a vegetative cell and a generative cell, the generative cell divides into two male gametes during pollen tube growth. In the pollen tube, when they are growing, the generative cell divides here to form two gametes. Then in the plants which shed pollens in the three-cell condition, the pollen tube already carries two male gametes from the beginning. Okay, so pollen tube reaches the ovary, it enters the ovary, then enters, see the pollen tube enters the ovary, they have two sperm cells or gametes, they grow, enter into the style, then enter into the ovary, then enter the ovule, the pollen tube, then it enters the ovule through the micropyle. So through the micropylar region of the ovule, they enter and then enters one of the synergids. So you can see here, first is pollen grain, it germinates. Then the pollen grain, when it germinates, they produce the pollen tube. Pollen tube grows into the stigma, it grows into the style, and it enters the ovary. The third step after entry into the ovary, they enter into the ovule through the micropyle. So once they enter through the micropyle, they deposit their pollen tube contents in the and it enters one of the synergids through the filiform apparatus. So the filiform apparatus is present in the micropylar part of the synergids and it guides the entry of pollen tube. Okay, so a plant breeder can manipulate pollen pistil interaction even in incompatible pollinations to get desired hybrids. That is manipulation, which we'll not discuss in this topic. So it is a crop artificial hybridization. It is a crop improvement program in which a desired pollen grain are used for pollination. So you should remember this. Artificial hybridization is a crop improvement program in which a desired pollen grains are used for pollination. This is achieved by two techniques, emasculation and bagging. Emasculation is removing the stamens and making the flower a female flower, covering this female flower with a bag. So that we call it as bagging. So emasculation is removal of anthers from the bisexual flower during bud condition itself, bisexual flower bud of female parent before the anther dehisces. So bagging here, the emasculated flowers are covered with a suitable bag. It is usually made up of butter paper. So to prevent contamination of its stigma with unwanted pollen grains. So when the stigma attains receptivity, mature pollen grains from a desired plant is collected from the anthers of the male parent and they are dusted on the stigma of this female flower. Then the flowers are rebagged and allowed to develop the fruits. So this is how we bring about the artificial hybridization by emasculation and budding process. So for unisexual flowers, there is no need for emasculation. So female flower buds are bagged before the flower opens. That is the only thing that you have to do. So in unisexual flowers, you need not have to remove the anthers, which is also not there. Stamens are not there. Reason is they are unisexual flowers. So the only thing is the female flowers should be bagged before the flower opens. Okay, when the stigma becomes receptive, the pollination is carried out using the desired pollen and flower after pollination, they are rebagged. So after entering one of the synergids, the pollen tube, it releases the two male gametes. So here you can see first the pollen grain underwent germination, they formed the pollen tube. So the pollen grain contents moved into the pollen tube. So if it is a two-celled pollen grain, the pollen grain contents are the vegetative nucleus, vegetative cytoplasm, and generative cell. So the generative cell within the pollen tube, they are going to divide to form two gametes. If it is a three-celled pollen grain, when they undergo germination, so they have, it is a ready-made pollen grain I used to tell you. Reason is they already have male gametes produced. So the pollen contents in the pollen tube would be vegetative nucleus, vegetative cytoplasm, two male gametes. So the pollen tube grows and along with that the pollen grain contents are moving. See, the male gametes are non-motile. They don't move. So how do they reach the ovary and ovule? It is by the growth of pollen tube. The gametes reach the ovule and the ovary and the ovule. So once this pollen tube enters the ovary, they enter the ovule through the micropylar region and they enter and they are guided into the synergid, one of the synergids by the filiform apparatus. So once they enter within the synergids, So the pollen tube contents are released. So there are two sperm cells. One of the sperm cell fuses with the egg cell in the egg apparatus to form the zygote. Another sperm cell, which is rich in mitochondria, they fuse with the polar nuclei to form the primary endosperm nucleus, so which later develops to form the uh, endosperm. So then later you find that the synergids degenerate and the zygote develops to form the embryo. The primary endosperm nucleus, which is triploid because there was two polar nuclei which were haploid and one sperm cell which was haploid, all three together when they fuse, they are going to form the triploid primary endosperm nucleus. So this triploid primary endosperm nucleus, they form the endosperm and the antipodal cells they degenerate. So the synergids degenerate after fertilization. The antipodals also degenerate. Since there are two sperms and one of the sperm cell fuses with the egg cell to form zygote, another sperm cell fuses with the secondary nucleus to form the primary endosperm. So this two types of fertilization is there. That is why we call as double fertilization is present in angiosperms because they have two sperm cells. One of the sperm cell fuses with the egg cell. That process we call it as syngamy. Another sperm cell which is rich in mitochondria, they fuse the secondary nucleus in the central cell and they form the future endosperm. So since there is three fusion, two polar nuclei fuse as well as a sperm cell. So three fusions are there. We call this fusion of sperm cell with the secondary nucleus. We call it as triple fusion. So you can remember a formula. Double fertilization equals syngamy plus triple fusion. So this double fertilization is unique in case of angiosperms. You notice only in case of angiosperms, this double fertilization is noticed. So what you have to remember is, see here, the pollen grain, compatible pollen grain falls on the stigma. The pollen grain germinates to produce the pollen tube. So the pollen tube contents, the pollen grain contents enter into the pollen tube. So what are those content? Vegetative nucleus, vegetative cytoplasm, and generative cell if it is two-celled pollen grain. If it's a three-celled pollen grain, the pollen tube contents would be vegetative nucleus, vegetative cytoplasm, two gametes. Okay. Now the in two-celled pollen grain, the generative cell divides in the pollen tube to form two sperm cells. Okay. Now the pollen tube enters into the style, it enters into the ovary, then the pollen tube enters into the ovule. By the growth of pollen tube, they enter into the style, ovary, and entry of pollen tube into the ovule. The path of entry of the pollen tube into ovule, if it is through the micropyle, we call it as porogamy. If the pollen tube enters through the chalazal end, we call it as chalazogamy. If the pollen tube enters through the integuments and then reaches the micropyle, we call it as the mesogamy. So there is porogamy, mesogamy, and chalazogamy. If the pollen tube directly enters through the micropyle, we call it as porogamy. If the pollen tube enters through the chalazal region, we call it as chalazogamy. If the pollen tube enters through the integuments and then reaches the micropyle, we call it as the mesogamy. So that is what you have to remember about in case of this fertilization in the uh, angiosperms. Okay. So after they have entered, the synergids guide them and the contents, pollen tube contents are received by the synergids. So they release the pollen tube contents are released in the synergid. So synergids have filiform apparatus. So the filiform apparatus guide the pollen grain entry. So now the pollen tube contents, that is one of the sperm cell fuses with the egg cell to form the zygote. Another sperm cell which is rich in mitochondria, it travels towards this secondary nucleus in the central cell and they fuse with them to form the future primary endosperm nucleus. They are triploid because secondary nucleus is formed by fusion of polar nuclei, two polar nuclei, and one sperm cell fuse. So there is totally triple fusion. We call it as three fusion has taken place between three nuclei. So we call it as triple fusion. So there is double fertilization. In one of the fertilization, sperm cell fuses with the egg cell. In another fertilization, the sperm cell fuses with the secondary nucleus or polar nuclei. So there is two fertilization or double fertilization. This is unique and found only in angiosperms, not in any other plants. Okay, so the zygote later develops to form the embryo, and the what you call it as the secondary nucleus, the primary endosperm nucleus, they develop to form the endosperm. So this is what is the process that you notice in case of them. Okay, so the one male gamete moves towards the egg cell and fuses with its nucleus, and we call it as syngamy. They form zygote. Okay, this is happening in the egg apparatus. The other male gamete moves towards this polar nucleus and located in the central cell and fuses with them to form a triploid primary endosperm nucleus. As it involves formation of three haploid, as it involves the fusion of three haploid nuclei. So this process is also called as triple fusion. So double fertilization equals syngamy plus triple fusion. Okay, that is what is the things that you have to remember about. Are you having any doubts here? ಏನಾದ್ರು doubts ಇದೆಯಾ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾ ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ process ನ?
Okay.
Okay. So since there are two types of fusion, the syngamy and triple fusion, which takes place in the embryo sac found in the ovule, it is called as double fertilization ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. It is an event unique to flowering plants, especially the angiosperms. The central cell after triple fusion, they become the primary endosperm cell. So the central cell is now called as PEC, primary endosperm cell, and it develops into the endosperm. The zygote develops into an embryo. So the post-fertilization events after this pollination, transfer of gametes, and fertilization, that is double fertilization. So you have this post-fertilization events. What are the post-fertilization events? So the formation of endosperm development, embryo development, ovule is going to form the seed, ovary is going to form the fruits. So these are the post-fertilization events. So the post-fertilization events include the formation of endosperm or development of endosperm, development of embryo, the formation of ovule into seeds, the formation of ovary into fruits. These are the post-fertilization events. So you now know the polar nuclei excel. So they undergo double fertilization. So the central cell forms primary endosperm cell. So they are going to develop to form the endosperm. The zygote is going to develop to form the embryo. So the fruit, they are going to, after fertilization, they are going to form the ovary. After fertilization, the ovule forms the seed. The integuments are going to form the seed coat. So the endosperm development, if you look into the primary endosperm cell divides repeatedly to form a triploid endosperm tissue. So endosperm cells, they are filled with reserve food materials. They are utilized for the developing embryo. For the development of the embryo, this reserve food material formed from this primary endosperm cell, it is utilized. So you might see the endosperm development. The primary endosperm nucleus, they undergo successive nuclear divisions to give free nuclei. So they do not have a cross-wall form. They undergo successive nuclear divisions to give free nuclei. This stage is called as free nuclear endosperm. So the number of free nuclei varies greatly. Endosperm becomes cellular due to the cell wall formation. In tender coconut water, so the coconut milk, what you call it as elliru. So the tender coconut water is a free nuclear endosperm, which is made up of thousands of nuclei. Okay, but they would not have fused, they would not have formed cell. But the meat of the coconut and the surrounding white kernel, it is the cellular endosperm. So the free nuclear endosperm, they are arranged into cellular nature. Cellular organization is there. So we call this kernel, white kernel of the coconut or meat of the coconut as cellular endosperm. So the water is free nuclear endosperm. The meat white kernel is called as the cellular endosperm. So the coconut meat is called as the cellular endosperm. Have you understood about it? Any doubts here? Doubts ಇದ್ರೆ mic switch on ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೇಳಿ. I'll explain to you in Kannada also if you require. Okay. So the next slide that we'll go into is embryo development. ಕೇಳಿ. Someone has a doubt?
Sir,
Yeah.
for free nuclear endosperm, other than coconut, any other fruit example is there, sir?
Free nuclear endosperm, I think coconut is the best example. I have not come across any other examples. The generally I've read only one example, that is coconut. Okay. So the cellular endosperm, we have a large number of it. So the white kernel is the example for the cellular endosperm. But free nuclear endosperm, I've read only about the coconut water. I've not come across any other example. If I come across, I'll let you know. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So the embryo development, another post-fertilization event is the development of embryo. The zygote has formed. Now they have to develop into embryo. So they have to develop into dicotyledonous embryo in case of dicot embryo sac. In case of monocot embryo sac, the zygote develops to form the monocotyledonous embryo. So one difference between both of them is they have two cotyledons, whereas there they have only one cotyledon. Okay, so there are stages here. If you look into the stages, so the zygote, it undergoes unequal mitotic cell division to form two cells. One is large cell, another is small cell. So the embryo develops at the micropylar region of the embryo sac where the zygote is situated. So most zygotes divide only after the formation of endosperm so that they get nourishment. So this gives nourishment or nutrition to the developing embryo. In monocots and dicots, seeds differ greatly, but embryogeny, embryonic development is same for monocots as well as dicots. So the zygote, here there is a stages of it. Zygote develops to form the proembryo. So that is this large cell and a smaller cell. Then globular embryo, they form the heart-shaped embryo, then mature embryo. So the various stages in the development of embryo are zygote, proembryo, globular embryo, heart-shaped embryo, and mature embryo. So the dicotyledonous embryo, mature embryo, if you look into, see here the globular embryo they form. So proembryo, then they form the globular embryo where you find this suspensor cells, and you can also find this globular embryo. The heart-shaped embryo you can notice. So the heart-shaped structures are nothing but cotyledon. They also have radicle and suspensor is there. So you can notice even the plumule in the mature embryo. So zygote is going to lead to proembryo, then globular embryo, heart-shaped embryo, and mature embryo. So the mature embryo, if you look into the structure, dicotyledonous embryo, it has an embryonal axis and two cotyledons. So embryonal axis is called as hypocotyle. It has two cotyledons. Then they have plumule, radicle, and radicle is the tip of the radicle is protected by root cap. This is a typical dicotyledonous embryo. So the portion of embryonal axis above the level of cotyledons is the epicotyle, which terminates with the plumule. So the epicotyle terminates with the plumule. The cylindrical portion below the level of cotyledons, we call it as hypocotyle, and hypocotyle terminates with radicle. So epicotyle terminates with plumule, hypocotyle terminates with radicle or root tip. The root tip is covered by root cap. So you can notice that the root tip is covered with a root cap. Whereas the monocotyledonous embryo, they possess only one cotyledon and we call it as scutellum. Okay, the monocotyledonous cotyledon, we call it as scutellum. So cotyledons of the grass family is called scutellum. So it is situated lateral to the embryonal axis at its lower end. The embryonal axis has the radicle and root cap enclosed in coleorrhizum. So the embryonal axis has the radicle and root cap enclosed by this coleorrhiza, an undifferentiated sheath. So portion of embryonal axis above the level of attachment of scutellum, we call it as epicotyle. It has a shoot apex and a few leaf primordia enclosed in coleoptile, so a hollow foliar structure. Okay, so these are the things that you have to remember. So we'll just stop still this discussion part of it, and we'll again brush up with these concepts. So in today's class, we have studied about how the post-fertilization events, what are those post-fertilization events are there. So the development of embryo, the development of ovary to form the fruit, the development of ovule to form the seed, the development of integuments to form the seed coat. So all these are the post-fertilization events which we have discussed, and we have discussed the process of double fertilization. Double fertilization equals syngamy and triple fusion. Then we have discussed the type of embryos, that is monocotyledonous embryo and dicotyledonous embryo. So this is what was our discussion for today's class, and we'll have again a recap of it so that if you have any doubts, you can get it clarified.